At the Office, Cleveland's home for sports talk that never clocks out. From the latest headlines to heated debates, we're diving into everything sports. It's your hosts, Noah and Matt.
Cleveland! Welcome into the Office, the show where we talk all things Cleveland sports. I'm your host, Noah, typically joined by my co-host, Matt, but he is out sick today, so I have brought in the backups, the reinforcements, the closer, the queen of progressive field, Alyssa 216. How you doing, buddy?
I'd be a little better if my baseball team was a little better.
I think me and you both agree when it comes to that. I really appreciate you hopping on. Let the people know real quick how they can find you, where your content is, where your articles are before we get into some of the spiel.
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter and Blue Sky at Alyssa216, on Instagram and TikTok at 216Alyssa, and you can find all of my articles for Sports Girls Club. I cover women in sports using the link in my bios on any of those platforms.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. And I want to just give a shout out that I do actually know Alyssa in real life. We were co-workers this past season for the Cleveland Cavaliers, had an absolute blast rolling t-shirts and then throwing said t-shirts into the crowd amongst other things. But really excited to have you on the show. And again, really appreciate you coming on such short notice. Excuse me. But first, we have to take care of some business, pay some bills, and that is our sponsor, D&D Meadery. Derek and Dominic, two twin brothers from just up the road in Madison, Ohio, now craft mead, honey wine for those who don't know, and you can get it from any retailer here in Northeast Ohio. If you order online, though, use code @the-office CLE to get 5% off. Buy 2 bottles. Get a free shot glass. And as we say every week, don't put it in the dishwasher because we broke all 3 of our giveaway shot glasses. So there's no more for me to show, but in the meantime, go check out the mead. They have a bunch of different flavors. This stuff is delicious. I know, Alyssa, you haven't probably tried it yet, but you should go out there and try it. It's some good stuff. Are you allergic to honey? Is that on the gambit of allergies?
That is not one of them.
Okay, good. I am glad. With that being said, thank you again to D&D Meadery for sponsoring the channel, the page, the podcast. We really appreciate it. 21 years, age, older, please drink responsibly. Now that we got that out of the way, the Cleveland Guardians have lost 4 series straight. Me and Matt came on last week and vented some frustration, and it has only gone more downhill. So I'm opening this up with asking you, Alyssa, tell us your thoughts on the Guardians losing 4 series straight, where this team sits as it is today, Monday, June 16th.
First, I'm really mad about the Ohio Cup. That one hurt, losing to Tito, losing the cup for the first time in 11 years. But what was most frustrating to me during that series was facing all of those lefties. And even though Vogt had at one point said, I don't do platoons, I don't believe in that. That was all we were seeing. And it's frustrating seeing us go out pretty much with the same lineups, no radical changes when radical changes are kind of needed within our organization. And just, you know what? Maybe if we throw the same lineup out again, it'll work this time.
Yeah, it's the platooning that doesn't make sense to me. I know Manzardo's been cold, but the lack of seeing him as much as we've had in recent memory. Me and Matt got into it a little bit last week, talking about how I think maybe we should just deal Santana to free up some of this logjam, with Kafis also being a potential option to play at first base. It's frustrating because you watch this team, and I think we've talked about this before. I was at some of those playoff games last year. So to watch this team go on this fun run, and yes, it did end in the ALCS in person, for them to then deal 2 players, and regardless of Ortiz being good or regardless of Sassoni looking like he has the potential to be good, you deal 2 of your best players, and now we're back to this 500 back and forth. We kind of suck. I don't know. It's just so frustrating. Frustrating is the best word to put on it. What did you get to watch a lot of the Mariners series? I know it was late night. Did you get to watch any of that?
Unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah, so give me some breakdown looking at that, because I thought that series would be a get right series for us before we have the Giants tomorrow. So what are your
Yeah.
thoughts losing that one?
Um, Obviously having that blown save in the second game was rough, especially everybody was all, oh, they've won, I don't know, it's like 118 games when they're leading in the 8th inning or later. And of course, like that got jinxed. But then it was rough watching that Sunday lineup roll out and not do anything. We only had 4 hits, and it's like I was saying before, it's frustrating to see us pretty much roll out with the same lineup and expect different results. And then going back to what you were saying about, how far we got in the playoffs last year, it's also frustrating that we were pretty much told, oh, we're going to roll out with the same guys, like we're going to run this team back. And we did anything but do that.
We got rid of 2 players, and granted, Jimenez has had a great year, but it still hurts. You're talking 2 fan favorites, and the proof to me of the difference is in the stats. The Guardians record right now is 35-35. The pitching last year, and I'm going to get into some advanced numbers and then break it down in layman's terms. ERA minus was 91 last year. It's 100 this year. WRC plus, weighted runs created plus, 100 last year, 93 this year. Basically, in layman's terms, with what the stats look like last year for the MLB as a whole and the MLB as a whole this year, is we had above average pitching and average batting last year. We have average pitching and below average batting this year. And I know that's abundantly seen when you watch this team play baseball, but when you have these numbers that back it, it baffles my mind. And I want to see them do something, but I don't know what that something is. And I know we're going to get into that in a little bit. But this whole situation of the Cleveland Guardians, I know you're not a Browns fan, so you don't have that blunder of last season on your mind. But between that, now the Cavs, and now this abysmal thus far season, I know we have had some players come back like Bieber. It just hurts, man. It's been rough over here in Cleveland. What else you got going on in terms of the thought process of losing the 4 straight series?
I think it's difficult. Well, we don't know what we're going to get from our starters, because we could have one day where they're going 6 innings, giving us a quality start, and then you have another day where they only last a couple of innings, and it's any guy. Really, I think the big one, though, is Gavin Williams not being able to get through at least 5 innings, really. I mean, and then, like, our offense doesn't show up and give him, any run support anyway, but I think it's difficult not having any kind of consistency with pitching, but also until Bieber and Means are ready to come back, unless they maybe call up Parker Messick, but there's really, like, nothing else we can do in that department.
Yeah, you talk a little pitching, and it's frustrating with me too with Bibee, because I thought for sure he would be number 1 arm quality, and sometimes he goes out there and he looks like Bibee of last season, and other times he goes out there and he lets up 2 home runs in the first inning, and we're down 5-0, 6-0, whatever, some crazy number. The pitching has definitely declined, and I think the pitching is also where we could potentially get some value out of this. And add some players. But before we get to that, I'm going to take us to break real quick. When we come back, we're going to talk a little Johnkensey Noel, because maybe he could be a fix in everybody's la-la land of hoping something makes the Cleveland Guardians go back to being the Cleveland Guardians of last year. And then we'll get into some trade talks as well. You are listening to At the Office, a proud member of the Fans First Sports Network. And we are back at the office talking all things Cleveland sports. Do us a favor, drop a like, drop a comment. Really helps us continue to grow the brand of At the Office. Make sure you check out Alyssa on all of her socials as well. 216 Alyssa or Alyssa 216, depending on the platform. Give me the breakdown on that real quick.
It's Alyssa216 on Twitter and Blue Sky, 216 Alyssa on Instagram and TikTok.
Thank you so much. Don't forget, you can call or text the show. You could get your audio brought in right here. at 216-260-3433, or just shoot us a text as well, and we will gladly get to your comment that way. Check out At The Office, CLE.com. We have plenty of merch over there, like this mug, some of the t-shirts that you've seen us wear. We have plenty of stuff over there, stickers, you name it, we have it. Shout out Fans for Sports Network for everything they do in supporting us. And now, let's talk some Johnkensey Noel, because he was a bright spot in terms of power hitting for the Cleveland Guardians last season, especially in that playoff run. Everybody loved Big Christmas, but he's kind of fizzled out. And by kind of fizzled out, I mean he was one of the worst players in the MLB prior to getting sent down to AAA, statistically speaking. Alyssa, do you think he's fixable? Or do you think it is a lost cause and the next Oscar Gonzalez situation with the Cleveland Guardians? I open the floor to you.
I still have some Christmas spirit personally. I think, we all need to get together and start singing to spread some holiday cheer and get that sleigh flying again. But I think one big issue when he was up here this season was he was not getting consistent playing time. And part of that was the platooning, even though there's no platooning. But I feel like he was not getting consistent at bats and he wasn't playing every day. And it's like, okay, you're going to come in 8th, 9th inning and you get this one at bat. And then the days he was starting, I feel like there was a lot of pressure, especially for him mentally. I need to do good today. I need to get a hit so I can prove that, I belong on this team. And he was seeing like only a couple pitches each day. I know there's one game where he saw 3 pitches all game. So I think I have a little bit of hope seeing that when he went down to Columbus and just, started hitting rockets again. And granted, there is a bit of a gap between the pitching in AAA and in the majors. But I feel like if he gets those consistent bats in Columbus, I feel like that's really going to help. But he needs to be playing a lot more often than he was once he is back up here.
Yeah, you took the words right out of my mouth, actually, in terms of what gives me hope that he can still put it together. And it is the fact that he was either being pinch hit, or being platooned, where sometimes he's playing, sometimes he's not, and he can't get that consistency. So I agree with you 100% there. It just scares me because we've seen so many times big power hitting baseball players come in, look good at the beginning because they can hit, and then pitchers figure out how to strike them out. He chases so much. The stats on him chasing is absolutely insane. His whiff rate is historic. It's 146. I don't have the exact split here, actually, but that's what scares me with him. I was listening to the Ultimate Cleveland Sports Show a little bit the other day, and they were talking about how he is the definition of a guy, in their opinion. I think it was Jay Crawford. Of a guy that could be in quadruple A, where he's too good for triple A, but he's just not there for actual Major League Baseball. And that's what frustrates with me. But at the same time, I was at the game where he hit the home run, so I am a very big Johnkensey Noel fan. So selfishly, I want to see it work, but personally, I just don't know if I see it. I hope him going down to AAA and kind of getting back into his own makes him a better batter and gets him back to where he should be, but I don't know if it's in there. Do you have pessimism at the same time, or are you full blown in the Christmas spirit, like you said?
I feel like for a while I've been a little scared that his floor was Oscar Gonzalez. So I'm like, this could go either way, and either way I feel like I am prepared for that.
Yeah, that's fair. What about just thinking about AAA for a second, do you think we're going to see any of these prospects? And I know this can kind of start pushing us towards the trade talk. Do you think we'll see any of these prospects get called up, like Kafis, like a Chase DeLauder, in the near future?
Yeah, I know like we really want to work with what we have, and we're pretty big in that, but I wish we did see more moves like that. I'm a huge Chase DeLauder fan, so every day I'm like delusional and I'm like, today's the day. Like I'll drop everything and I'll go to his debut like I did for Manzardo last year. But I'm hoping we see him and Kafis in the near future. I know Kafis is doing more right than he is first just because of the log jam there. But I feel like if Santana did eventually get moved, then we would see him there with Manzardo. And Chase is doing both left and right field. And my thing with Chase especially is we all know he's going to get hurt again. Why not just call him up already? It's inevitable. But I feel like, if we really want to invest in our guys, then we need to make a call up for at least one of them and just see what they can do, because they're both just absolutely mashing in AAA. Chase has a much higher walk rate. I think it's like 9 points higher than his chase rate. And they're just every day it's like, yep, Kafis gets a hit, and now Chase does. And, I'd like to see them get the chance to do that up here.
I'm with you 100%. You mentioned your Zardo fandom, which I am also a Zardo head for lack of a better term. But I've also heard rumblings. What if he was included in one of these trades at the deadline? What would your reaction be if something like that happened?
I would be no, I would start a riot. I just don't see that happening because I think a lot of people forget that it wasn't initially going to be a Savali Manzardo 1-to-1 trade. It was supposed to be Bieber and a bunch of other guys tacked on, and Manzardo and a bunch of other guys tacked on. So it was supposed to be our ace for Manzardo initially, and that was before Bieber's first injury. So yeah, I think a lot of people are forgetting that part. So I don't think Manzardo is going anywhere, and I think if he truly is going to be our starting first baseman, they need to be playing him more, especially against lefties.
Why do you think they're not playing him? Because, I get it. He's on a little bit of a cold streak. I think he's batting sub 200 right now. I think he's like 191 or something like that, average-wise. But, he is a bona fide stud of a prospect. That is what you bought into, and you have to see a guy like that through. So, do you have a thought process as to why? Are we too obsessed with the platoon right now? I don't get it.
I think it is a platoon, whether or not Vogt wants to say it. I think they really want to get Santana and Fry those at-bats, and they're, I guess, prioritizing him, or the two of them, over him, and when it is a lefty, but his splits are pretty decent against lefties, so that's why I'm kind of like, why can't one day it be Kyle over one of them? And I was hoping we would see that with the Reds, but we didn't. So I don't know. I wish we had an answer for that one.
Yeah, me too. I think the obsession with the lefty versus righty matchups is hindering this team for sure. Yeah. And I get the thought process behind it, but we're a young team and these guys need consistent plate appearances to be the offensive juggernauts or the offensive weapons that they're supposed to be. It just makes no sense to me. And speaking about offensive weapons, I know we wanted to talk a little trade. There's the Emmanuel Clase name being floated out there. There's prospects. There's a bunch of stuff going on in terms of what we can do to shake this up to potentially still look like the Guardians of last year when Stephen Vogt won Manager of the Year. What are your thoughts on trading Clase first and foremost, and then we can kind of get into the nitty gritty of what you would want to see in a return if that trade came to be?
Yeah, I know we've seen Cade Smith get the opportunity, especially a couple times earlier this season when we were trying to get Clase to find his footing again. I wouldn't be as concerned about it now as I would be, say, middle of last year, you go, we're going to trade Clase. I'd be like, no.
Right,
but
right.
This year, it's like we do have at least one guy with the capability of stepping up into that role. So I feel like if we were to trade Clase, that needs to happen sooner than later. It probably should have happened end of last season if it was, something the organization was really looking to do and, really trying to get Cade Smith into that role. But I feel like if we were to trade him, I'd want it to be for a big haul that we haven't seen in a while. I don't want it to be just for a rental player and a prospect. It would need to be a pretty big haul, I would think.
Yeah, sizable for sure. Selfishly, I don't want to see it happen just because I love watching Clase play in person. He's my second favorite guard. Well, I guess he's my first favorite pitcher, second or third favorite Guardian behind Bo and Quan. Jose's in there as well. You know how that works. You just love all of them eventually. But selfishly, I don't want to see it happen. Logistically, with what this team needs and a potential shakeup, and now we have a Cade Smith that looks like he could be a closer in this league, I get why you would want to do it and explore it. And yes, I'm with you 100% there as well, that they need a decently good sized haul for that trade to go through, in my opinion. So we were talking some teams before we actually went live. Let's talk a little bit about what you want to see in a trade, what teams you think could make for a trade. Let's take it from there.
Yeah, so I was looking at teams who are trying to make that playoff push and might also be in need of a closer. So I ironically came up with the Blue Jays. I'm pulling up his stats right now. Their closer right now is Jeff Hoffman, and he has 17 saves out of 20 opportunities this season, but he has 19 earned runs. He's rocking a 5.70 ERA. So I'm like, I mean, if you want to make that playoff push, you're probably going to need someone who's a little better than that to get you to it. So I think, ironically, we could see another Guardian end up becoming a Blue Jay. They already have 3 of our guys on their roster.
Right.
But like, I feel like they have, I mean, I watch more of them than I do like the Bisons or anything like that. So I'm not too familiar with like a lot of their prospects, but I feel like they do have the depth and like the guys that they could move and could offer back to us.
Yeah, there was a couple different teams that I picked on as well. One of them being the Cubs. I think the Cubs could make sense, which I feel would give some people some PTSD just because of 2016, of course. But with how good they've been, and you know, they have some decent prospects. I'm trying to think of the guy's name if I can pull it up. Give me 1 second. But he's top 50 right now. How do you say that? It's Owen Casey, I think is how you say it, but he's a top 50 prospect right now. I don't know if they would include that, but with them, you know, potentially being in a championship win now type of mode, yeah, who knows? But aside from that, they obviously have players they could include in that as well. A couple other teams I was thinking about: Diamondbacks, the Padres, maybe the Dodgers, and all of their just buy everything and continue to win championship modes. But yeah, those are some of the teams I'm thinking of. Realistically, if you tried to put a haul together in your mind of like, you don't have to put names if you don't want to, but like what you want to see the Guardians get back in terms of a Class A trade.
Yeah, so I also very much like Class A, and like I wouldn't want to see him leave. And like because of that aspect, if we're going with the Blue Jays, then give me Ernie Clement back, because like that's my number one. But I would like to see, I don't want rentals is like my big thing.
Yeah, I'm with you.
So I'm thinking like a center fielder or a middle infielder. Just somebody who's like a more power bat, because we really need that. And it's crazy. We went from being this team just even like a year ago who had all of these middle infield prospects. And now we're like, we don't really have anyone. We have 3 on the roster. And if anything happens to them, then we turn back to Rocchio. So I'm like, we might need one of those bats.
Now, don't diss my boy Rocchio, because he's been swinging.
That's the
Columbus.
thing. But if we brought him up, then he wouldn't do anything here, and we send Arias down, and he would start raking in Columbus. That's always how the 2 of them go.
It's the definition of the quadruple A player. Too good for triple A, but just not good enough for the majors. I'm with you, though. I want to see some actual pieces being added, not like, here's Class A, give us 3 of your prospects and have a great day. I'm with you 100% now. If it's a everyday starter and a prospect or 2, I'm fine with that.
Right.
Or, you know, a majority time starter, whatever that looks like, whether it be an outfielder or a middle infielder, like you said. What about some of the other pieces? I know there's the Bleacher Report trade that had everybody up in arms last week, maybe 2 weeks ago now, that had like Cade Smith going to the Red Sox. Obviously, I don't think something like that would happen now with the Red Sox selling their whole team.
I was saying, what are the Red Sox even doing?
Right. No, that thing is absolutely, I still can't believe that trade from yesterday. It still blows my mind. But are there any untouchables in your mind? We could already say Jose and Quan, I feel like. But other than those 2, are there any untouchables in terms of this Guardians roster? And do you think that they're going to sell? at the deadline, or do you think they're going to continue to try to retool and make a playoff push?
Well, I like that you mentioned Quan as being untouchable because I'm seeing a lot of people, and not with like validity or anything, being
Right.
like, let's trade Quan. And I'm like, no, like it would be one like that, like that's a franchise player right there. But after already getting rid of 2 fan favorites at the end of last season, to get rid of Quan too would just send such a horrible message to the fans, to the organization, to anybody who wants any kind of growth with this team. So I think, Hosey and Quan, they should both be considered untouchable. Like Quan's definitely in that conversation. And then I'm gonna add Manzardo in there just because if you're ready to give Shane Bieber up for him, like you gotta invest in him and play him.
Right.
I could see Lane Thomas and Carlos Santana as being movable pieces, especially with them being on the last year of their contracts anyway. So I could see us trying to make a move with them and get a return before just letting them go at the end of the season. As much as I love both of them, it's just, what would be best for the team. But I see them being very passive during trading, which I feel like we always are. I don't see them doing anything too major.
Yeah, I'm curious because I was of that same mindset when the Manzardo trade went down and they traded the pitcher. I don't know why his name is escaping me right. Savali, thank you. When they traded Savali for Manzardo, and it's funny in hindsight how pissed people were about that trade just because of Manzardo being such a high prospect, but it was a signal of we are selling this season. We're basically over it, right? So I could see them making a move like that to go try to get a top prospect, whether that's dealing a Class A, like we said. Now, we were talking a little bit about that Bleacher Report trade. I'm just circling back on it because I mentioned it because it had Cade Smith involved. How untouchable do you think Cade Smith actually is? Because I think he's pretty far up there in terms of the time being because of how cheap he is, too.
Yeah, I feel like out of our 4 horsemen of the bullpen, as I like to call them, like he and Clase are at the top, I would consider. So, like, it's hard because it's like I like all of them, but I feel like Gaddis and Heron would be, well, not Heron because like he's our best lefty, not that he's having his best season, but I feel like it'd be more likely with Gaddis unless there is like a really high demand for a closer-like pitcher. But I feel like Cade shouldn't be considered somebody who we would want to look to move.
No, I'm with you. I want to keep Cade long term. If I love Class A, I've learned to love Cade so much. One of the last games where he was actually in the closer role in Cleveland, I was actually at that game and watching him do the closer entrance and all of that. Goosebumps. Anyway, I'm being too much of a fan right now on the podcast. Barry Northrup mentions talking with Atlanta, getting Marcell Ozuna. It's an A, right?
Ozuna from the Braves?
Yeah, from the Braves. I'm trying to read if there's anything. I see it on Sports Illustrated, but I'm trying to see if there's anything in terms of what we would give up for him. I don't know what that would look like, but I like, having some more hitting help. That would be great for sure. Do you got any input on that?
Well, if you search Ozuna from the Braves, I'm not the biggest fan of him in particular. And that's always the fun game of, balancing the sport over, like anything else, like outside of the sport.
Right.
But yeah, like if we were to give up Class A, it would need to be for somebody who could immediately help this team and not just for this season.
Yeah, I forgot about some of the off the field stuff with him as well. I just had to double check it. So yes, I get what you're saying 110%. But he would be a help. I won't lie when I say that, but it's the separating the art from the artist almost.
Yes.
It's hard. It's so hard. What else? Any other trades, any other pieces you want to give up? Are you going to be upset if they include DeLauder and his injury-riddled past in a trade? Because you said you're a fan, and yes, I've seen him play, and he's fun to watch in person, don't get me wrong, but I could see him being an attractive piece as well.
I wouldn't want to see us trade him before we get the chance to actually see him play in Cleveland. Like, I feel like,
Yeah.
especially with, I mean, not so much now, especially with Bazana being our top prospect. I know, like, the organization, like, made a big deal about him, and rightfully so. But I just remembered this comment that I had sent to you where somebody said, trade Clase because he's our only big leaguer other than Ramirez and Kwan who could get anything. Also, trade Chase DeLauder, Kafis, and Bazana. Our prospects never end up being good anyway. Might as well capitalize. So you know what? I think they're going to trade Clase as well as all of our top prospects. And we're just going to call it a season.
To be fair, the last big name prospect I think I can remember us having actually pan out is like Francisco Lindor. It's been that long.
That's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, you have little ones here and there. Like the jury's still out on a lot of the guys like Manzardo right now or whatever. But like in terms of like bona fide panning out, it's crazy to me. Dylan Northrup asked, would you try to get someone like Corey Seager or Jarren Duran? Duran was mentioned in the Bleacher Report trade I brought up. Alyssa, what do you think?
I was gonna look at their stats because like the guys that I know best are the ones in my fantasy team.
Seager's 238, 6 home runs, 14 RBIs, 36 hits on the season. Got that one for you.
Okay. I mean, where are their contracts at?
That's a great question. That's a great question. We're being put on the spot right now. Contract. 10-year, $325 million contract with the Rangers. But he's a solid fielder as well. That's right. Seager, of course. And then Duran, I forget where his money's at, but I think
he's actually on his last season.
I was going to say, I think it makes more sense for the Guardians in that, yeah, Duran would still be cheap, as Dylan said. I thought he would make more sense. Seager, I doubt the Dolans are paying that kind of money.
That was my first thought. You said his contract, and I'm like, the Dolans aren't paying that.
No, not at all. Not at all. Anyway, what else do you got in terms of trades, thoughts? You said they're going to be quiet at the deadline. I hope they're quiet at the deadline because if we're going to just be mediocre, I'd rather have our mediocre players still be in Cleveland instead of shipping them off. But if it was a guy like Lane or if it was a guy like Santana, I guess I wouldn't care. What else are you thinking trade-wise? You got any other thoughts, Alyssa?
I don't think so. I'm just hoping, Bieber makes a good return, helps us out with starting there. But, I'm fine with slow and steady wins the race as long as we keep your arm intact.
Yeah, 100%.
But yeah, I'm just hoping that before the deadline comes, we see the kind of team that we know they're going to be for the rest of the season. I don't want to play 500 ball until the deadline. And then we decide then, okay, we're going to tank this season or we're going to take off, which I feel like if we're at 500, we're just going to, be like, whatever.
Yeah.
But I wish before that point we would make some moves, see what we have in our guys, because if we're truly going to invest in our guys, then we need to invest in our guys and we need to make some changes and see what we do have in the organization.
Yeah, I think that's what excites me. I don't know if excites me is the right word, but it's appealing to me, I guess, if we were to move on from a Santana or move on from a Lane Thomas, as much as I love both of those players for historical reasons, or Lane just because of last season, of course, because I want to see some of these younger players get a chance to go in there. And we're already logjam with Fry and Manzardo. We have Kafis. We have Chase DeLauder. And I know, like you said, Kafis has been playing some right field and such, but there's a lot of log jamming going on that first base side, and Lord knows we need help on the outfield. It's been years since we've had a real starting right fielder, but Alyssa, I appreciate the time and everything, man. This has been fun.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Of course. Anything else you want to say to the people, Guardians wise, anything else? Of course, plug your stuff again. You're more than welcome to.
I don't know. I'm just hoping that this season doesn't turn out to be a bust, especially with how good last season was. It's definitely very frustrating to be at this point. But despite being a born and raised Clevelander, I still have some optimism for this team. I am hopelessly optimistic, as you would know, with the Cavs. But I still have some hope from this team, and I think the hope just comes from knowing the kind of guys that we have who we haven't seen yet. And that goes all the way down to like Bazana, who is injured and we won't see until next season because of that. But I just, I hope that we do see some changes, even if it is just moving around the guys that we have in the organization. So
I know you just said you're hopelessly optimistic, which is probably going to answer this question for me. But I just thought, I feel like a lot of Cleveland fans are down on Benzana right now because some of the other players at the top of last year's draft has already played in the majors. Are you feeling down? I still love the draft pick. I've seen the kid's mentality talking about like helping some of the other lesser known prospects in like Lake County and now Akron. I'm a big fan of this kid still. I think he has all the pieces to be a great second baseman in the MLB. What do you think about him? Because I feel like people are really negative about him right now.
Yeah, I feel like the people are very negative. Like they're looking at the other guys and they're trying to figure out like what we're doing wrong. It's like no matter who we drafted, no matter what we're doing, it's going to be wrong.
Right.
But I'm very close with the Lake County captains, so it's very fun watching him there last season and get to win the Midwest League Championship with them. And then with this season, I think like he was nursing that injury for quite a while. So and he's not like DeLauder where he is chronically injured. So I'm not pessimistic about him or anything. I'm not, and I don't have any concerns about him either. Like we're gonna progress him hopefully at like a good rate. I know our organization likes to play around with like service time and all that and try to work their way around it and manipulate it. But I'm hoping we'll see him at Akron in a couple of weeks and get him to AAA by the end of the year. And then maybe even next season we could see him starting at second base or getting there by maybe May. But I don't have any concerns about him.
Listen, all I hope for is he is in Akron. It's a long shot at this point for the June, I think 28th game when they are the Akron Galley Boys, because I already have tickets for that because I am the biggest Swenson's fan of all time. So I want to go there for that game. And of course, I'm not going to get to see Bizana play. I did get to see him a little bit last season, though, for Lake County, because that's only like 20 minutes from me. So it's a great time. Lake County is a great little ballpark. I know you're close with them. I've been up there quite a few times now, especially being a downtowner. Alyssa, it's been fun. Make sure you plug your stuff one more time for everybody to go find where they can see some of your content.
Yeah, you can find me at Alyssa216 on Twitter and Blue Sky and at 216 Alyssa on Instagram and TikTok, and go Guards.
Go Guards, indeed. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to yet another edition of At the Office, a Cleveland sports show. Make sure to hit the subscribe button. Follow us on all the socials. We have X, we have TikTok, we have Facebook, we have Instagram. You name it, we're probably on it, and we're probably posting a whole lot of content surrounding all three of the Cleveland sports teams that we've unfortunately come to learn to know and love. Thank you for tuning in. We really appreciate you taking the time, taking a little bit out of your day, especially on a day when the Guardians aren't playing. I know the finals are coming up in a couple hours here. Really appreciate it. Till next time, Cleveland, stay up, stay blessed. And until next time, peace.